Hey guys, thank you for tuning in once again for another deep conversation and a lesson about a subject with fundamental importance that can make a crucial difference in our lives. That of stress and most importantly, or specifically, how to actually eliminate or lower the amount of stress we have in our daily lives to the minimum, where it's no longer disabling us or creating a tons of problems down the road. Because trust me, stress is something extremely dangerous when sustained for a prolonged time. And we're gonna find out exactly why, what is it doing to our system, and how to actually eliminate it from our lives once and for all. So, as always, we begin with the fundamental question. Why do you want to eliminate stress from your life? What if you did? And what if you didn't? I beg you to ask yourself this question, because your why is what's gonna get you there. It's what's gonna get you to overcome the challenges, the discomfort, all of the changes that you need to create in your behavior, in your thinking, in your emotions, in your actions, and so on, in your environment, that will create the outcomes that you want to have, which is a peaceful, calm, and beautiful life, even amidst the storm. And we're gonna go deeper and deeper into that topic and peel back the onion to see how we actually can befriend anxiety and stress to a certain degree and use some of it to empower us in situations. So again, the fundamental question we always begin with is why? Why do you want to do this? What if you did, and what if you didn't? What are you meant to gain by eliminating stress from your life? And what are you meant to lose, or what do you be losing, or how is it that not eliminating stress on the long run in your life is gonna have, what repercussions would there be to this? What would be the results of you holding on to or not being able to get rid of the stress from your life and live a calmer, more relaxed, centered, and grounded life from a place of empowerment rather than scarcity, fear, hatred, and so on. So let's get into it and see exactly how we can do this. But first, pause this video and answer this question for yourself. Why do you want to do it? What are you meant to gain by doing so? So there is this misconception out there that you should manage stress. Question is though, why would you manage something that you don't want to have whatsoever in your life? Something that it's not beneficial, that it's not valuable to you, and if anything is detrimental and disempowering. Why would you want to manage? You manage the things you care about, right? If you have real estate, investments, and so on and so on, whatever it is. You manage your life, hopefully, successfully, and so on. So you want to manage things that you care about, things that are valuable to you, things that are making your life better, or are in some way have positive benefits rather than stress. Why would you want to manage stress? There's nothing to manage about it. The best thing to do is to eliminate it altogether, or create a life that doesn't accumulate or is helpful in a sense of you generating and accumulating more and more stress in your life, because this is kind of like what modern life, with its fast pace and all the nonsense that we exposed to on a daily basis, especially in the last few months, while here things in the human world have been very interesting with the so-called pandemic and so on and so on. you see how stress is affecting people, how are they acting, and so on and so on. And it's been a very interesting time, I must say, for everybody, even for myself, from the perspective of where do we go with this? Like, seriously, why would people act in such a dramatic way when it's flu and so on has been around for a very long time? It's not something new, and there have been pandemics and so on for worse things than that long time ago, when we actually didn't have the amount of medical abilities or doctors or knowledge to really know how to treat those infections and viruses and so on. But again, this has to do with the amount of stress that people are already holding on to, because there is that much that you can accumulate until things need to really erupt in a very disruptive way. Just like a volcano builds up pressure over time, over time, over time. You don't see it under the ground doing its thing, and all of a sudden, whoosh, and it blows everything in its vicinity, literally is evaporated in an instant. So this is exactly what's going on. Unless we find a healthy and a productive way that we can daily exhaust all this pressure that stress and anxiety and fear and so on are like toxifying our system, because literally it's toxic, and I'll explain why it's such a negative and toxic thing to hold on to, especially for prolonged periods of time. Now, let's first look at the immediate effects of stress on us. Unfortunately, this is something we cannot change. Our nervous system, physiology, and psychology are wired in the way they are very long time ago, when we used to live as cavemen or hunter-gatherers in small tribal communities, and our survival was a bit of a struggle, right? It wasn't something that is as easy and convenient and pretty much almost impossible to either die from hunger or anything else at this day of age. You have to be highly misfortunate and something very dramatic and traumatic to happen to you or me or anyone else to have a sudden death, right? We live in a world that's very safe, that's very comfortable, and so on. However, our system is wired to react, not to respond, to react to external environment in a very extreme way, because our external environment, again, back 40, 50, 60, maybe even 100,000 years ago, when our ancestors were going through the savannah or the jungle to hunt and to gather and so on, right? We weren't yet the top of the food chain. There are big predators, animals, poisonous snakes, all kinds of animals that are there that can really harm us, besides everything else, right? That you might slip, fall off, and whatnot, right? So our system was wired to react to external danger in a very specific way, which is, most of you might be familiar with, heard before and so on, is fight or flight response, which is not really a response, it's a reactive activity, because a response means that you have a choice of how to respond to something, right? It's your choice, where when the fight or flight system is activated, there is no choice. It's an automatic system. It's part of the sympathetic nervous system, which is responsible for the main physiological processes that take place in our body, such as heartbeat, blood pressure regulation, breathing, arousal, and so on. So all of the essential processes on a physiological level that take place in our body that are necessary for our survival or for our continuous life. So this system, when some sort of stress or anything that triggers the system to get activated gets into the fight or flight response, which immediately draws away blood from our brain, from our gut area, from pretty much all of the vital organs, and pumps it up to the externalities, or our legs and feet, because again, you're either gonna fight with your hands and your feet, or you're gonna run. Nothing else is important at that moment, because it's based on the assumption, or the assumption of your body, my body, and everyone's body, that this is an immediate threat that needs to be taken care of right now, and it's pretty much a matter of life and death. Now, this is a wonderful system to be able to tap into and use when there is actually life-threatening event taking place right now in front of us. But when was the last time that this happened to you? Think about it. Where fight or flight is activated all the time, and little things can activate it just by literally by thinking of certain memories, recalling certain traumatic memories from the past, or worrying about what might happen in the future. We can trigger it without even leaving our house. We can be literally chilling on the couch and all of a sudden get into fight or flight mode and get into panic attacks and so on, just by mismanaging our own imagination, right? So the immediate effects of what's gonna happen, and you're gonna start like really feeling it, your heartbeat goes really fast. Your breath becomes very, very shallow and fast too, and it's right here in your chest, right? Again, the blood is pretty much drained from all of the core area of the body, and it goes all to the externalities, digestion, excretion, all of these vital processes, because again, the blood is no longer here, it's just here and in our legs, stops and it slows down. There is acid that actually enters into the gut to slow down the digestion of any food. Also, again, the whole blood from our brain is drawn away too. So we actually lose our capacity to think clearly and our intelligence. So let's say that you are a 200 IQ genius. All of a sudden your IQ points in a snap go down to 75. And you cannot think clearly whatsoever. That's why, for example, when you get angry or when you get stressed out and so on, you tend to do things that are not necessarily the most intelligent decisions that lead to the outcomes that you wish for, right? And then you tend to regret, or you'll ask yourself, like, how did I act like such a, like, almost like an idiot, right? Where did this came from? Because of this. Because when we get into a fight or flight mode, there is no time to think, calculate, and be thoughtful about what is to happen. We need to react immediately. And again, this is great if we are still living in a hunter-gatherer society, or maybe in a battlefield situation and so on, where you really need to survive. But in a lifestyle where we live in apartments and we drive cars and we have TVs and food delivery and all kinds of pampering ways to be comfortable and live this sedentary life, honestly, this is one of the most destructive things that we can trigger. And again, because we can trigger it without anything taking place besides we engaging with our imagination in a highly unproductive way, this is why it's so scary. And this is the conversation, or the deepest part of our talk today. How to avoid doing this, because stress and anxiety, fear and so on are nothing but bad self-help, meaning that they're self-inflicted through our thinking. And I'll explain how this works. But let's take a step further and see what are the actually long-term negative effects if we are continuously in this ongoing chronic state of mild fight or flight response on a daily basis. What's going to happen is over time, because of all the chemistry, every time we think about something, we create an emotion. Simultaneously, the brain releases a certain hormone or chemical that corresponds to that feeling and thought, which in effect affects the physiology in our body. When we're stressed, when we're anxious, when we are in fear, when we feel shameful, guilty, angry, we have hatred, all these negative feelings, what happens is that the mind, or actually the brain, releases or secretes immediately, like literally immediately, cortisol and adrenaline. You can think of them as the hormones of stress. Now, these, again, hormones are very useful for a very short amount of time when you want to get really, like, lived up, like you want to get really excited, filled with energy, and fight or run for your life. But if you sustain them for, let's say, for a day, 2, 3, 4, 5 months, a year, and so on, right? Because that's what happens. If you are into the state, what becomes apparent is that since we human beings are creatures of habit, we create a mental, emotional, and physiological habitual pattern of this process taking place automatically without even us being conscious of it. So this is happening automatically. We create this habit, we don't realize it, and we just run this tape or loop every single day and stress the shit out of ourselves and cause harm to our organs. Because what happens is cortisol and adrenaline, again, those chemicals of stress, are highly toxic to the organs in our body. They literally start to kill the organs in our body. Not only this, but they also, what they cause, especially cortisol, that's specifically the hormone of stress, is proven to negatively affect or fry out our brain's neuron receptors, which are responsible for being the kind of like the contact points where all these hormones bind to create either when we think, when we want to feel something, and so on. So for example, all these connecting points, neuron connections on our brains, is where also, just like the hormones of stress, there are also the hormones of happiness, love, and so on that bind to as well, like dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, and endorphins, right? This will be the positive or the type of chemistry we want to sustain rather than avoid. However, what happens is when we sustain higher and prolonged levels of cortisol in the system, it burns out all these receptors. So then we become unable to actually process or accept them in the system. And this, in a lot of people, is what leads to depression, right? Because a depression is literally a habit of thinking shitty thoughts, feeling shitty emotions, and creating a toxic chemistry and environment within your body that over time it just becomes a habitual behavior and fries out all the system. And not only this, but over time all of the different vital organs starts to shut down, because one of the main things it leads to, like in a short amount of time, is indigestion. Because when you're gonna, again, based on the short-term effect, when you're gonna fight for your life and run away, digesting food is not important, right? You might turn into someone's food. So the last concern your body has at this point is digesting food. So every time you get into that state, your digestion is shut off. Your gut literally tightens up like a bow like this. So you're gonna have constipation, indigestion, all kinds of bowel issues and intestine issues and so on, which leads to other tons of complications. Again, all the organs are literally toxified because there's also acidity or acid that is released in the gut to slow down or stop the digestive process, which in itself makes your internal chemistry highly acidic, which, as you probably know, is highly dangerous and toxic for the whole body. So neither is it good in short term, neither is it good in long term. In both cases, it should to have this chemistry of stress or to be in the fight or flight response. And what are the main reasons that nowadays would cause us to activate the fight or flight system? As I just alluded to it, one of the main reasons is actually our misuse of imagination. Because here is the thing that I want you to grasp that is very important. Our minds do not make a distinction between what we vividly imagine in our memory or imagination, or what is actually happening outside in front of us in our eyes. So let's say if you have a very traumatic memory from the past that you constantly recall, relive, and just all the time lingers in your head, in the background of your head, or there's some new project or something that you really want to happen, and you just like, you overthink and worry, you're like, oh, I want this to happen, whatever it is. You create this worst case scenario possibility. You start to worry about all the things that can go wrong, right? Rather than thinking about all the things that could go right, like best case scenario thinking, right? So one of the main things is just our own inability to use our mind's capacity to visualize and to imagine. Right? Because we either recalling the past, a memory from the past, and reliving it, because again, our mind does not have any distinction or doesn't differentiate between what's happening within and outside. To it, it's the same thing. And the way the whole system works is, if I was to think and recall an old traumatic memory from the past, it's going to trigger within me the very same response, the fight or flight response, the same toxic chemistry and everything. My heart rate will increase, and so on and so on, and I'll be just like if it was happening in my real world, right? Same with our imagination. If we are worrying, if we are thinking about the worst case scenario, pessimistic, right? We pessimistic, we create all these elaborate stories in our heads about what can go wrong, all these things, and we start to see them, and we start to worry, and with worrying we get to stress and fear and anxiety and all these things, right? We don't want to go there. We don't want to go there. If anything, if we're going to use our thinking for anything, especially when we project forward to the future, because the future only exists in our imagination. The only thing we have is an eternal now. Just like right now, I'm here with you, looking at the camera, creating this video, and talking at you, having this deep conversation. There is nothing outside of this. The past and the future, they only exist as a concept in our mind. Outside of this, there is no past nor future. So if we're gonna think about something, might as well focus on what we want to happen in our lives, which would be to project to the future. I'm not suggesting that you daydream all day, but it's a lot more effective for us to focus our thoughts about the outcomes we desire rather than the things that could go wrong, right? Because one causes us stress, the other one comes from a place of possibility, and if anything, will make it even easier for us to achieve that success, because we've already seen it. We already been that route, right? We already have a good idea of what's going to happen, because believe it or not, this is a proven fact. There's plenty of studies that have been done on this specific topic of visualizing or doing exercises or learning a skill or something just in using your imagination and visualizing it by sitting at home, for example. There are studies done for numerous things. Not only do you create new neural pathways in the brain, but you also develop muscle mass, abilities, and so on. So this is a proven fact. There's so much evidence behind it. It's unbelievable. So what we want to do is eliminate all these things, or eliminate the dysfunctional thinking or habitual pattern of thinking that we have had, because we human beings are creatures of habit, and we have many patterns. Patterns of thinking, patterns of feeling, patterns of behavior, patterns we run on a daily basis in every single aspect of our life. You probably sleep on the same side of the bed, you wake up at the same time of the day, you like your coffee in a certain way, you get my idea, right? Or you brush your teeth with a certain hand, you start in a certain way, right? Like, you get the idea. We have our patterns and habits, and this holds true for our thinking, for our emotions, and so on. So if anything, the main thing we need to do is make sure that we are not generating the stress ourselves by either recalling traumatic or unpleasant memories from the past, or imagining the worst case scenarios. There's also another layer that's outside of us, right? This is the self-help part, meaning like we are misusing our imagination and memory, or ability to have this conceptual idea of present, future, and past. The next layer is the external. Things that happen outside of us that cause us stress in the real time. For example, you want something to happen really bad and something else happens, right? The other main reason for stress in our lives is life not fitting our picture, or we have a picture, very rigid picture, an idea of how things should unfold in our life. Let's say because we are too much trained to use our logical mind rather than intuitively navigating through life and using the mind more of a critical thinking too. When necessary, we rely on it, and it tends to want to chart each and every step down the path towards whatever our goal is, destination, and so on. It always wants to have to go from point A to point Z and have all the steps, rather than being able to work from the place of, I know what my step is, and then whatever the next step could be, I will take that. This is why usually this happens. We create these elaborate plans in our heads about how things should be. And the moment one of those steps in the plan don't come true or materializes in a different way outside of our plan, we get literally thrown out because, wow, my plan didn't work. And then we get disappointed. We start to stress out. What we're going to do now? The plan is not working, and so on. Don't make plans. Or even if you have a plan about something, realize that plans rarely, if ever, work exactly as you planned. There's a good popular saying about this, which is, men plans, God laughs. So my invitation is to be very flexible with your plans and not to be very rigid of how things should be, but rather focus on what is the outcome that you want, not how it should happen. The key is to focus on the what, not the how. The more we want to control how things happen in our life, the more stress we're going to generate, because we place too much importance on things that are outside of ourselves to happen and unfold in a certain way. And as you probably have noticed, this throughout your life, this is rarely the case where we can control or predict exactly how things will play out. Plus, not only is this highly dysfunctional because it creates stress, but it limits the field from infinite possibilities to very tiny little or a snippet of possibilities. So we want to keep our options open. We want to have I would say, a flexible plan and not necessarily try to follow it rigidly, but take the step that's right in front of us right now and see whatever is the most effective step to take afterwards, rather than try to plan again from point A to point Z, or from step A to step Z, the whole path, and expecting for everything to miraculously work out. This is the other way we create stress in our life. Now, there's a few more layers. The first one is watching the news or mainstream media, because all of it is negatively, with a negative bias, and always is bringing all of the sensational bad things happening around the world. All the negativity, all the fear, all the scarcity, all the hatred, all the separation, all of the non-tolerance, all of this anxiety, and all this just literally fucking garbage, right? You don't want to taint your consciousness with this garbage. Just like you probably wouldn't drink water from the sewer, why would you consume content from the sewer? Because that's literally what is its equivalent to. Just like, again, you would not drink water from the sewage. Why would you consume content from the sewage? I do invite you to think about this very carefully, because when was the last time you saw something positive on the news or in the media that was very coming from a place of possibility, of love, of abundance, of acceptance, of excitement, of joy, and so on? When was this last time? I'm sure that it's really hard for you to recall that exact time, because all of it is always negative, negative, negative. Even when you, if you were to actually see what CNN means or stands for, it's constant negative news. So I do recommend you avoiding and completely quitting all news, all media, and all this nonsense, newspapers, news reports, anything that might be tainting your consciousness with this low-level emotions, all this negative stuff. You throw it away, you quit, you forget about it. That's one of the things, or one of those other things outside of us, right? Things that are actually neither our thinking, neither the importance we place on how things should pan out, but things outside of us that we allow into our life, because that's what it is. We allow them, and we have control to shut them off, just like you can shut off your TV or whatever. Honestly, I haven't watched TV in so many years. I even recently, like maybe 2-3 months ago, I bought me a nice big screen for my office space here to connect my laptop to, and I gave away my TV. I just left it downstairs at the building, and somebody took it right away. I was like, wonderful, like, enjoy it. You know, even if I got paid, I wouldn't sit to watch TV. It's the most brain-dissolving activity one could ever do to themselves. Now, the other part is our peer group, or your peer group. Because if you are surrounding yourself with pessimistic, negative people that are full with hatred, anger, and just hold on to these negative emotions, there will be your body, your mind, your emotions, you will be attuning to their frequency of thought, frequency of emotions, frequency of being. And you will be literally planting seeds within your consciousness of their negative, highly toxic ways. So I do not recommend spending time at all with negative people. I don't remember the last time I ever tolerated this. I'm very specific and selective of the people I spend time with. I'm not saying go and tell them to fuck off, what I'm suggesting is you limit the time you spend with those people that you know that after you spend time with, you feel drained, you feel pessimistic, you feel like, nah, there's something wrong, like this person or this group of people drains my energy, right? Like, be conscious of those things. Very conscious of those things. Or maybe if it's not your energy, every time you spend time with these people, then you have many negative thoughts and all this like charge, right? This negative emotional charge within you with thoughts and so on for days and days. So I'm very, very specific about the people I like to spend time with and allow close into my trusted circle. Be very selective of those people because we attuned our bodies, minds, hearts, souls, and spirits, attune with the others or the people we spend the most time with. Just like the popular few expressions are, you become the sum of the 5 people you spend most of your time with. Or show me your friends, I'll show you your future. If you spend time with 5 or 10 negative people, drug addicts, daily alcoholics, gamblers, and so on, the chances are you're going to be the 10th or the next one in the group. You will literally default to their default behavior because we are conditioned all the time from our environment. The only control we have is our choice of what environment we put ourselves in. So this has to do with, again, avoiding negative people in our lives, or people that steal away our energy, people that are pessimistic, people that are always talking negative things about someone, judgmental people, close-minded people, all these people that really are not adding anything of value into our lives. Now, even though we want to eliminate all of the stress from our life, we need to understand also that there is such thing as a healthy amount of stress in our life, and then there's unhealthy stress in our life. For example, what's a healthy stress? I don't know if you've known that or heard about this, but for example, the gravitational force of planet Earth constantly places a pressure on our spine or our bodies that keeps actually all of the blood circulations and all the different exchanges of liquids and so on, and all the processes that take place in our body, it enables them to function or to take place in the most optimal way. However, astronauts, when they go and spend time on the International Space Station for 3 months, 6 months, sometimes as some have done over a year, when they return here, they have a lot of issues because they have been in a zero gravitational force environment for a long time, which causes them to lose bone density, muscle, and their strength and so on. So actually they have to go through a conditioning process again for their bodies to adjust to the pressure or the stress, the healthy type of stress that is caused by the gravitational pull and pressure applied from gravity on our bodies. So there are a certain amount of stress that is actually good. Also, whenever, small doses of stress are actually good because, for example, when we wake up in the morning, our body naturally creates cortisol and adrenaline to wake us up, to get us to wake up, to get out of bed. So there are certain amounts of stress that are okay because this is just part of the system. And having a low amount of stress throughout the day makes you actually alert, right? To a low degree. Just like, for example, if you're a very calm and relaxed person, which I am, nothing really triggers me or makes me reactive. I like having a cup of coffee because it brings my alertness higher, or makes me more alert, because caffeine, for example, is one of those stimulants that causes higher amounts of cortisol and adrenaline in the body. It makes you more alert and stressful, right? Especially if you're already stressed out, having more coffee or anything with caffeine for that matter is only going to make things worse. So I do not recommend having more than 1 cup of coffee per day. I really don't. And especially don't have it early in the morning when you wake up, because as I mentioned, the body naturally, in order for us to wake up, the brain starts to secrete higher amounts of cortisol and adrenaline early in the morning for us to wake up, or in our regular wake up time, right? If that's a certain time you like to wake up or your alarm is set for. So I do not recommend having coffee for at least 90 minutes, if not best after 2 hours, at least 2 hours after you have wake up. So don't have your cup of coffee right as you wake up. This is not a good thing to do, because your body is already running high on its own supply of stress chemistry. So don't add fuel to the fire. It's not going to be beneficial to you. As I mentioned, stress, worry, anxiety, all these low-level emotions that are, again, outside of the norm, or outside of a low, slight level, are extremely toxic, are always 90.9% of the time bad self-help. Because, again, choosing not to watch the news or consume any news reports or any of that garbage, or to spend time with negative people, or to, for example, not worry and imagine worst case scenarios, or recall traumatic things from the past, or try to control how our life unfolds, is all self-done. Meaning, like, we have control over these things. It's all self-help. It's like we have to take responsibility for our own doings, right? And not blame anyone else or point fingers away from this person here. It's all self-help. We always have the choice and we have the control ultimately. Now, let's say if you work in a very stressful work environment, the only thing stressful is how you process it in your mind, the perception you have that it's been stressful, because you're telling yourself a story that it's stressful, rather than not creating a story whatsoever and not allowing yourself to get engaged or hooked into the emotions of other people. Right? Because there might be people that are stressed out around you. This is absolutely normal. In corporate America, some people feel proud that they are stressed out. Well, good luck to them. They can go fuck themselves. Or tell them to watch my video, because they're not helping anyone. If there's a lot of people that think that, again, being stressed out gives them an edge. Well, yeah, it gives them an edge like this. Absolutely. Yeah, it's such an edge that once they're 50 or their 60s, their body is going to be a total wreck, and they'll be basically being sucked out by healthcare and doctors and all these disease management agencies that want to use you as nothing but a bank account to squeeze out all the money from your health insurance, from your savings and so on, to maintain your disease. Because what all of this prolonged stress leads to is actually the manifestation of degenerative diseases in the body. All of them. There's a significant amount of body of evidence that proves that a lot of these degenerative diseases, such as cancer and so on, that are very hard to treat, are in a lot of cases self-created by prolonged and sustained negative emotional states and thought patterns, habitual negative thinking and negative emotional states. That's why it's essential for us to have a mental and emotional hygiene, because what I've been talking about up to this point is all about creating and establishing a certain level of mental and emotional hygiene in your life, so you create a peace, calm, and centered lifestyle that really serves you and empowers you to go far in life and enjoy a higher quality of life for a long time to come. Now, moving forward, as I mentioned, stress can become chronic when our bodies, minds, and emotions become addicted and fall into a habitual pattern of thinking, of emotions, and so on. This is what chronic stress is. And chronic stress, again, as I mentioned earlier, because of its chemistry and how this chemistry, toxic chemistry, affects the body, eventually leads to depression or leads to depression. One of the things is depression, because again, those hormones that are secreted with the emotion of stress not only lower the amount of happy, positive hormones in the body, such as dopamine and serotonin, but they also disable or damage the neurons or the neural connections in the brain where these happy hormones can bind to and make us feel happy. So stress can become very chronic and addictive, because our bodies and minds are adaptation machines. They will adapt to any environment we put them on. So again, the control is within our hands to choose what environment we want to place ourselves at. And that holds true internally and externally, meaning our own thinking, again, and what we allow to come into our world through media, through our peer group, and so on, right? So we are always in control. And we always have the ability to make better choices. So my invitation is to start making better choices today that's going to benefit you in the long run. Another one I do recommend also doing beyond the news and your peer group is actually to also limit or eliminate your consumption of content such as Hollywood movies or series or anything like this, or even books and like all of these stories and so on, anything that contains violence, any low-level emotions, because the way we are triggered, or actually not so necessarily triggered but wired, is that we have parasympathetic or sympathetic nerves in our body, in psychological and nervous system, that basically whenever we're looking on TV at someone who's struggling, who's suffering, who's in pain, who's angry and so on, it triggers the same emotions within us. And we might be watching it on TV, but the same thing is taking place within us, because we are wired to be empathetic to other human beings, to relate to them. So cutting out all of this low quality content, or content that has low quality emotions with it, is my next suggestion for you to eliminate. Honestly, I haven't watched a Hollywood movie, or any movie for that matter, for a very long time. And I do not, for any period of time or anytime soon, plan on watching one. I cannot exaggerate how bad it is to keep on doing this, because what are you doing? You're conditioning yourself to be chronically feeling negative emotions, to fall into that pattern of cheap thrills, right? Like those little horror movies and so on. I actually used to like them, but that's when I was 4 or 5 years old, because it was thrilling back then to watch that scary movie that everybody's afraid of. But I was a little child. I didn't know better. now that I know how this is affected my nervous system, my psychology, my whole life, why would I again drink water from the sewage? There's no point. Another one would be violent games. Anything with violence, anything with hatred, anything with guilt, shame, any of those negative emotions, I highly, highly recommend you literally quit cold turkey, or as soon as you can. And you're gonna see a major difference in your levels of calm, of joy, of happiness, of lack of stress, and how much more relaxed you are every single day. This is gonna make a significant difference, because again, if I was to, for example, stop drinking the water from the sewage, obviously it's not gonna affect me anymore. Right? So please do this for yourself, for your family, and so on. Whatever your situation might be, do yourself a favor and stop drinking water from the sewage, because that's what this is equal to. We want to have a mental and emotional hygiene, just as you probably have dental hygiene and physical hygiene, taking showers, right? I hope you do. I hope you do. Another one, and not one, but there's multiple things that go into this specific subject, is that the one thing outside of all these that directly affects our psychology is our physiology, or how we keep our body posture, our breathing patterns, shoulders, and so on. What we want to do, because if we are, again, there's specific physiological patterns that are typical for the fight or flight response, which is shallow breathing up here in the chest, accelerated or heightened heartbeat, so on and so on. If you've probably seen somebody who's depressed and you observe their posture, they usually look like this. Their chests are caved in, their shoulders are protruded forward and kind of like this. And put yourself in this state. I started to feel like shit just by doing so, I started to feel like shit right away. So by holding our body in the wrong way, we literally start to create the same condition within without even knowing it. So the key is to be relaxed, right? To have your shoulders back, your chest open, to relax your shoulders. And the first thing is, if you haven't learned yet, have talked about this in all or many of the previous lessons before, I recommend you starting to learn or learning how to breathe deep and slow down here with your diaphragm rather than up here in your chest. Because by breathing here in your chest, you constantly create or trigger within you, without even noticing it, a mild state of anxiety and stress, because you only breathe here shallowly, because you cannot have deep breath here in your chest when you're stressed out. And by doing it yourself, you create stress within your body. So what you want to do is learn to breathe deep and slow. Through your nose, in and out, down here in your diaphragm. The easiest thing to do is to actually use one of your palms and place it over your belly, and the other one up here in your chest. The trick is to make sure that this hand up here on the chest does not move at all, and when you inhale, this hand down here actually moves, because it's your belly that's being inflated with oxygen. And then when you exhale, again, this hand up here doesn't move, and the other one below actually sinks into your belly. So learning how to breathe down here, because this is actually the most natural and highly effective way to breathe, because not to go deeply into this different rabbit hole, but 2/3 of our lungs, or our lungs' capacity to absorb oxygen from the air we breathe, is down here in the diaphragm rather than up here. Only 1/3 is up here. So for every breath I take down here in my belly, I have to take 2 up here. And not only I have to do this, or to equal the amount of oxygen I bring into my system, by doing so, I create stress within my body without even noting. So this is the first trick I actually want to teach you, or tell you about, or hack, however you want to term it, of how to feel calm and relaxed, especially if you start to feel that you are stressed out and anxious, right? Is to slow down and to focus on your breathing. And down here again, deep, slow breaths within your diaphragm. And also constraining your throat right here, so when you inhale and exhale, you hear that hussing sound. Kind of like the deep, Darth Vader breath, right? So I would say, if you're able to, do it slowly, deeply, and inhale for the count of 20. Then hold your breath for a count of 20, and then exhale for a count of 20. And this is about 2 counts per second. If you're slow down your breath like this, and you become very conscious and present with your breath, you're gonna quickly notice that in a few minutes, if you are getting stressed out or anxious or in a panic attack, or you had anxiety or fear, you will start to feel a lot more calmer, and all of these physiological effects that normally would follow with you getting to this level of stress and anxiousness would actually dissipate, because you would only breathe in this relaxed, calm and peaceful way if everything in your environment was fine. So this is actually how you say to your body, to the whole nervous system, that you got things under control. And it doesn't need, there's nothing wrong going on in your environment. It does not need to enter into fight or flight mode. So this is the most effective and immediate way to counteract the fight or flight response that will take place as soon as you hit a certain level of stress and anxiety, regardless of what's causing it. Again, it could be your own thoughts and imagination. It could be the media you're watching, whatever it might be. Maybe your boss at work, whatever it is. So every time you catch yourself, slow down your breath, inhale for 20, hold for 20, exhale for 20. Do this for 10 to 12 breaths all together. You see what a significant difference you will have. Even if you just do this, practice this daily. This will also, if you practice this daily after work, right? And especially if you're normally commuting, you're stuck in traffic, do it while you're stuck in traffic. You'll see how more peaceful and calm you will feel. Or do it when you get back to home after work, right? Do it all the time, every single day. You will see how it actually has a very positive and calming effect. Another thing, Another thing you can also do while you're doing this, and not while you're driving, right? But let's say while you're sitting at home, or you're relaxing maybe in the park, or whatever you're doing, but you don't have to use your hands. Your hands are free, and I'm not saying let the wheel go. You can place your hands right here over your chest, over your heart, and keep them there, because this is gonna help you relax even furthermore. And since you don't want to, anyways, as I was explaining, you don't want to move your chest here and breathe with your chest. Actually, this will also help you to notice how you're breathing within your belly or in your diaphragm, and you're not breathing with your chest. And hold your hands right here, because this is gonna tell your heart that everything is fine, and to relax and start to actually release oxytocin, which is the hormone of love, and the hormone that is actually an antidote to cortisol, because the opposite of fear is love. And with love, another suggestion I have for you is to spend time and cuddle with people that you love and care about, or your pet, for example. If you had a pet, cuddle them, because this will allow your body to start releasing oxytocin. Oxytocin is the best antidote to cortisol, or through love, we can conquer any fear. So that's another recommendation of how to actually eliminate stress from your life. Now, as I mentioned, over time, we can accumulate a lot of this toxic chemistry within our body. And if that's the case, the only thing that would help us to actually digest or allow our body to assimilate and use all of this toxic stress and fear chemistry, because it has a specific purpose, is to do high intensity exercising, because this will allow us or our bodies to actually take full advantage of these hormones and use them to burn them away, in a sense, to lower them down from the system. So I do recommend, for example, sprinting, right? Sprinting as if you are fighting for your life, or doing something with a high intensity. And I do mean high intensity. I don't mean like you're pretending like you're doing it. No, you either run for your life or you fight for your life. Another great thing, I do this every single day. I don't joke when I say this. As part of my exercise, and that's not to necessarily distress, because I have other practices which I would talk more about as we go into the conversation. But as part of my exercising routine, I do shadow fights. So I do recommend another way to do it is to sign up for a boxing class or something of the sort, where you can just put some gloves on and you can box or hit a bag, a punching bag, and act as if it was you actually fighting for your life, and go and spend, do it once a week or maybe twice a week, just to get all of this toxic chemistry of stress out of your body. This is the only effective way to actually, once this chemistry is there to be used, because again, it's there to make you fight or flight. And if you're only gonna fight or flight, it's gonna stay there, and it's gonna stay there, and it's gonna stay there, and it accumulates more and more and more, and you create this highly acidic and toxic environment for all of your vital organs in your entire body. So this will be the only effective way to actually make sure that you exhaust, use, assimilate, and consume or metabolize all of this toxic chemistry out of your body. Now, as I was mentioning, the most effective long-term strategy that you can develop to eliminate stress from your life is actually to begin a daily meditation practice. This is what I meant by my strategy, my main strategy. This is what I do. I meditate every single day, not necessarily for stress, but lowering or eliminating stress entirely from my life is one of the many benefits that daily deep meditation practice brings me. If you haven't started yet, I would highly recommend that you start to practice meditation. This is one of the most powerful and easy things you can do. And then obviously, initially, it's not gonna be comfortable, or you will have to learn how to do it and so on. But trust me, it will be the best investment you can ever make for yourself, because what it's gonna create, or what it's gonna allow you, is to be unreactive to environment, to be responsive, to come from a place of choice, from a place of calmness, of deep calmness and serenity, to be blissful, to be joyful for no good reason, but just because you are. Again, I highly recommend you taking up on a meditation practice. There are numerous apps that you can listen to, guided meditations. This is how I started a long time ago. So guided meditations are a very easy and a powerful way to start doing it. Another way to actually do it that is very helpful and can take you to a very deep state of meditation very quickly is binaural beats. Especially alpha, theta, or delta ones. Especially delta. Find one that is delta and listen to it. Or start with an alpha, then with theta, and then delta. All you need is your headphones. You put it on, you sit down on a comfortable chair. Make sure that your spine is straight. This is very important, that you keep your spine straight. You don't want to sag. You don't want to be twisted and so on, because this is not good neither for your posture nor for the flow of energy through the different energy centers within your body. Some people call them chakras and so on, right? So keep your spine straight and start by using binaural beats or guided meditations. What I did many years ago that was very helpful for me, and I do recommend it, but maybe as things normalize to a new normal, because right now big social gatherings and so on, or events and retreats are not something feasible. But what I did some time ago was I went on a 10-day silent Vipassana meditation retreat. That was an amazing experience I had, because it allowed me to take my meditation practice to a whole new level of depth and intensity. And what is wonderful about these retreats, that for your first time, you don't have to pay anything. They will feed you, they will give you a bed and everything, teach you how to do it, and all you have to do at the end is to leave or give whatever donation you want to give. You might not even give anything if you're unable to do it, but they will take you and allow you to do it, which is wonderful. So once things normalize, if you really want to learn how to meditate and develop a solid, deep meditation practice, this is something I would definitely recommend. Another highly effective thing to do on a daily basis, or very often, is to actually spend time in nature. Go out in the green, right? We're not built to live in apartment buildings, to drive cars and so on. Even though it is convenient, it's not our natural environment. Our natural environment is out in nature. Spend time by the ocean, spend time in the park, somewhere where it's green, where it's peaceful, where you can hear the birds, when you can feel the breeze of the air on your skin, when you can have some sunshine. Take off your shoes, walk with bare feet on the grass, the ground, and allow all this static buildup that has built up in your body to get out of your body, and to allow new fresh energy to enter, and all the static and old energy to get out of your body. So this is spending time in nature is another very powerful and simple thing you can do daily, or as often as you want to do it. Another thing I highly recommend, now if you want to watch something or consume some type of content that is actually not going to have a negative effect on you, I do recommend anything humorous, or anything that's going to get you to laugh, but really laugh out loud. Laughter is one of the best, or humor is one of the best antidotes to stress, fear, and anxiety as well. So any content that you can watch that, like, again, doesn't have nasty jokes and stuff, but it's very happy, very fun and joyful and hilarious that you can laugh out loud to the point where you can cry. This is an amazing thing. Or you have friends that actually make you laugh that much. Like, for example, a month ago or so, some of my friends from Vegas that I haven't seen in a while came by and we went to the beach to hang out. And man, they made me laugh so much. I was literally crying the whole time from laughing. I didn't stop laughing for like hours. Like, it was like at some point my belly started to hurt from the laughter. It's just an amazing way, simple way, something really joyful and wonderful to do to actually, again, release and remove all the stress, fear, and anxiety. Also, here's another very powerful hack. Whenever you have pain or you hurt yourself and someone, laughter is the most potent painkiller you can ever use. For example, a week ago, maybe you cannot see it, but right here, I stabbed myself, not purposely. I was cutting this avocado in 2 halves and trying to remove the seed in the middle, where all of a sudden the seed, I guess, was so soft that the knife just sliced through it and went directly in my arm and into my palm right here. And as you can imagine, it actually went pretty deep. It didn't come through, but it may be, that deep, maybe, 1/3 of an inch or something. So it was pretty painful. And what I did right away was to start laughing, and start laughing in a very genuine way. Not even 2 seconds later, the pain was gone. Like, obviously it was still bleeding and I had to clean it up and disinfect it and all that, but the pain was gone. So using laughter is something very powerful and effective you can use at any point in time. As I already mentioned, the other thing I highly recommend is that if you have people you care about in your life, a pet and so on, cuddle with them. Every time you cuddle, right, cuddle and spend this nice quality time with someone, your body's gonna naturally start to release oxytocin, which is the most natural antidote to cortisol. So by being in that state, you're gonna, again, create this level of peace and calm in yourself, which is a wonderful place to be. I hope that this was, again, another wonderful lesson and plenty of value and information that you can take and apply right away into your life to start getting the results you are looking for and create a higher quality life. It was a pleasure to have you again. Thank you for tuning in. I just want to mention a few things. Right below, you will find a link to my coaching calendar. I offer each and every one of you a complimentary coaching session during which I will help you to either overcome your biggest challenge and problem in the current moment, or to take advantage of your greatest opportunity. So please take me up on my offer, click on the link and schedule your coaching session. Also, my 5-day holistic transformation challenge is down there too. Sign up. It's so much value and such a wonderful experience to go through in the next 5 days and gain even more knowledge and wisdom and take yourself to a whole new dimension in just 5 days by watching short form videos, like 10 to 15, 20 minutes at the max, right? Rather than this one long video right now. So plenty of value, great insights, wisdom again. It's very dense with information, so I do recommend. And there's also great exercises in it as well that I do recommend you going through, because they're gonna help you to transform and have significant results. I do recommend taking the challenge with a notepad and making a lot of notes, and I hope you've been making them up to this point. You can always rewatch it. There's no, there's always this, right? Because the repetition is mother of all knowledge and skill. So it also helps to rewatch this video when you want to, again, to recall some things and capture it. And you will hear things from a different place every time you watch or learn something again, because our minds expand all of the time, and each time they do, every time we go back to a certain amount of certain type of information, we start to see it, hear it, and perceive it from a different place, which is a very powerful tool. We start to see it in layers. I have created an amazing Facebook community through which I'm serving you and everyone else who joins. Please join the Personal Mastery Society on Facebook and meet and connect with others who are on this path of self-discovery, mastery, and growth. It's all about building the community and having the support and the peer group you need. As I mentioned, your peer group is an essential part of your life. So you have all of the reasons to join and to find new peer group in your area, which would be a wonderful thing. And finally, if you think that this video was awesome, please share it, like it. If you have a question, leave it down below. I'll be happy to answer it, and leave me a comment. I live to serve you guys and to add value and to be of help to you in any way possible. So I look forward to serving you powerfully, seeing you again. Thank you guys. Thank you for tuning in. Bye-bye.